Welcome, everyone, to the Why Not Us podcast. I'm your host, Mike Jaws, and this is my co-host, Jersey Mike. And, well, we've said it all year, but a lot of you don't believe us when we say we're ball knowers. The reason and the proof in the pudding is Mike has now moved to a crispy 11-4 lock of the weeks this year, which is just an outstanding record, Michael. Not as good as your co-host, though, who's at a 13-2. Bang! Look at us, man. Holy shit.
I truly just did not see this coming. I'm not gonna lie.
Not one bit. I thought we'd be able to post on Instagram oh my God, we're 3-12. And people will be like, oh, look at these idiots. In fact, it's the opposite. People really have to start looking at us as a premier gambling podcast now, correct?
That's what the people are saying. And I think the more impressive part than the records is also, they're not sweats. They are locks. It's not like we're just picking a team to win. It's not like we're just picking a team to cover. We are picking teams that are blowing out their opponents. We are picking teams to cover that are winning outright or covering with ease. It's too easy at this point, honestly.
I mean, the games have really been easy. Last week, we both wanted to take the Cardinals -6 against the Patriots. We just thought it was a great spot, not a sweat. And then since I took that and you wanted to beat me, you took, I believe it was the Bills, right?
No, I went with the Texans.
Oh, it was the Texans, right? And yeah, that was a no sweat too. We're finding games that people don't necessarily watch, but we just feel good about. And yeah, they haven't been sweats. 13-2, 11-4, and now the next three picks we make are just monumental. You could still win this thing. I could still go 16-2, which is just a crazy number. Anyways, great week by us. Also a big week in football. The 1 p.m. slate was Garbo, but there were two big games in the afternoon slate. It was Lions, Bills in Detroit, and it was Steelers, Eagles in Philadelphia. Both teams, all four, above 10 wins. It was going to tell us a lot about who was in the driver's seat for Super Bowl. And I think the biggest things we learned, full transparency, me and Mike did 20 minutes of this pod before this one, and then it just kicked me out because of my connection. So I think we're aligned in that this says most about the Lions and their injuries and the Steelers and actually how they aren't as juggernauty as you might have thought. Now, the only reason I say that is because I think even you realized how good this Eagles team was, and I'd love to reiterate those points, and I know most of you would not love me to. But the Steelers, I think, they are who we thought they were type of situation, which, by the way, I just got to give a round of applause and a fuck yeah, because I fucking hate that team. I hate their fans. I was on the ski lift hours before the game, and I bolted back to Denver. I got back into my apartment as the game was starting. It was perfect timing. Shout out Kevin.
Nice.
But dude, I mean, these fans on the lift were like, "Oh, we got it." Oh, Russell Wilson. TJ Watt. It's yeah, I know TJ Watt exists. He's not going to win you a football game against a dominant team just because you thought it. Anyways, I'm just really, they've lost me so much fucking money this year betting against that team because I've seen this. It just took a really good football team, elite, like the Eagles, to prove that point, and that's what we saw on Sunday, Mike.
Yeah, that's definitely my biggest takeaway from the game. I think that the media built this game up as who's going to be the dominant team in Pennsylvania. It's the battle of the two cities in the one state. And it was two teams with double-digit wins. It was two teams that have been playing well recently and don't play often. But like you said, I think the Steelers were never an equivalent opponent to the Eagles in this game. I think the Eagles were always the better team. They were favored at home, which is yet again another advantage. The Steelers are a little banged up and missing George Pickens, so they really didn't have many receivers to go to. And the Steelers, as we are seeing, are not an elite Super Bowl contender. Do they belong in the playoffs? Yes. Do they have a very good defense? Yes. Are they extremely well coached? Yeah, no shit. Mike Tomlin doesn't have a losing season ever. But they win games at home. They win games against their division. They win games against teams with bad O-lines where their defense can dominate and rookie quarterbacks who turn the ball over. When they play good teams outside of their division, they're no match. If they played the Lions, if they played the Bills, when they played the Eagles this past Sunday, those are situations where the media has no choice but to hype up the game because there weren't a lot of good games to hype up. But it was never the Steelers. I'm sure it felt extra good for you because of how much money they've taken from you. They're a very
So
hateable
good.
team. For
So
some reason, I
hateable.
kind of like them this year, but like they're a very hateable team. And props to the Eagles. They took care of business.
They did.
I truly have nothing negative to say about the Eagles. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you could go on and on about all the amazing things that they did. What was your favorite part of the game?
I mean, I'll get to my favorite part of the game, but to kind of reiterate that point, like it is kind of a weird spot like I'm in and also just we're in because we led and started this podcast with Cowboys Eagles, the greatest rivalry in the NFL. Going to be a great year by the both teams. Who's going to win the NFC East? You said Cowboys, I said Eagles. And really, like, I haven't been able to like go that far with you because I just can't envision if I was an Eagles fan and my team was injured, average, not a lot of talent, not a lot of hope in the future, and the Cowboys were just dominant juggernaut, and I could visibly see that just by watching the games. I don't know what I would be doing to cope. So after I ask your question, I want to just know what's your life is like lately, just dealing with this, not to mention the miles. My favorite part of the game was something I've never seen before. It was the end of the game where the Eagles were up 14 points and there were 11 minutes left. And Tomlin decided to punt because he, I guess, trusted his defense. I saw more as a disrespect to Jalen Hurts. Like, what makes you think you're going to stop him after the way he's been playing for 2 drives? Mike, it was started on the 3-yard line. 10 and a half minutes left. It was a 21 play, 88-yard drive, and they took the entire game off the clock. There were throws, there were passes, there were big third down conversions, and there was a lot of strategic planning by Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts, and Nick Sirianni on that drive. And I or anyone has never seen a team do that because it's never happened before. They could have scored. They got it down to like the 10-yard line, but they kneeled the clock out. It was almost like a bigger spit in the face, just being able to do that versus actually score. That was my favorite part of the game. And I think that's just the story of this football team is like, you got to play perfect to beat them. I've said that all year. I also said they weren't going to lose another game after their loss to the Bucs, and that's played into fruition. I'll tell you what I would do if they lost another game here in a sec. But yeah, and I'm also going to take a step back because I've been saying all year, and it'd be contradictory if I came out and said, look, we just beat one of the best teams in football. We're the juggernauts. Here you are. But really, I was never that high on the Steelers as most were. Now, we did dominate the Rams. We did dominate the Ravens. We got a big game against Commanders coming up. There's not anything to hate about this football team right now, but media is still finding ways to do it. I don't know if you've noticed.
They are, and I'm not in love with the way the media is doing it. I sort of am taking my own strategy to, as you would say, cope with the fact that the Eagles are a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and I will admit that because they are. I will stick to what I've been saying all season, and it has yet to come true. And if it doesn't, I'll sound like an idiot, and the Eagles will be Super Bowl champions. But what I think is going to come true is what I've said all season, which is the Eagles are playing a dangerous style of football. It is a style of football that makes the other team, as you say, play perfect. But the Eagles themselves are not playing perfect. They keep the game close with good defense. They're not incredible at putting up points in the first half. A lot of times they dominate a game, and yet they're up by less than a touchdown at halftime. And it's just very interesting. Like, to dominate a game and only be up, even in this game, 4 points at halftime. So my point is, if you dig yourself a hole, can you get out of it? And they haven't digging themselves a hole that they haven't been able to. Now, I don't think they've played a team that is capable of digging a hole the Eagles can't get out of, and I think they're going to face some of those teams in the playoffs. Now, if they keep playing the same way that they've been playing, they'll probably continue to win football games. But it is weird that you have a team that, not going to blow it out of proportions, but they do kind of hate each other on the sidelines. Like, not everybody is best friends. They're not going out to grab beers after the game. Like, it's like, all right, good job, let's go home. It's like when you and I go to work and we
push
say
back on that. There's a lot.
We say goodnight to our coworkers and we go home. They do the same thing after they win in the locker room.
Maybe some players.
They're not as tight-knit as other football teams are, which is interesting for a team that has won, 10, 11 straight football games? I'll just say that. I'm not going to blow that out of proportion. But for a team like that...
Have you seen that? Have you seen them all do that? It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's kind of lame, but okay. Like, it's just interesting that a team that is not blowing people out, that isn't best friends on the sidelines, like, if there is a game where they dig themselves a hole against an offense, like, doesn't look like the Lions anymore because of the injuries, but like a healthy Lions or the Bills or like the Bucks when they're rolling. I'm not saying the Bucks are going to beat the Eagles, but that offense can get going. Man. Like, those are scary situations where it's paid off and the Eagles are winning games, but it is dangerous to always be in close games. And I won't put them on the level of the Vikings of 2 years ago or the Vikings of this year. We can talk about that more later.
Yeah.
When you're always in a close game, it is hard to win every single one. They have done that so far. Will they be able to do that the rest of the year in what is most likely going to be every single game will be close?
You're saying game, though, it's really only first halves that are close. They blitz teams in the second half, and that's a testament of a good football team. You can give it a question mark as to why they're close in the first half. The Steelers game was different than the typical first halves you see because they actually dominated. They started off throwing the ball, getting first downs. There wasn't any like first two drives. They didn't get any yards shit, but the score was still close. There were some fumbles, turnovers in there, but so
that's my point, though, is, and I'm going to start off with my point one and then back up with the scores. But if you showed somebody who hasn't watched a lick of football all season, even the final scores of some of these Eagles games, it's not that insanely impressive. Like, the Steelers, they won by 14. Cool. They beat the Panthers by 6 points. They beat the Ravens by 5 points. They beat the Commanders by 8 points. They beat the Jaguars by 5 points. Like, they beat the Browns by 4 points. They beat the Saints by 3 points. Like, these are close games, strictly based on the scoreboard. I'm not talking about the way the game is played.
So you're saying,
I'm just saying that's dangerous.
So what you're saying is that if you hadn't watched an Eagles game and you looked at their scores, then you would think that they're not as good as they are. Is that what you're saying?
No. I think if you looked at all their scores and you realized how many wins they had, you would have no choice but to admit they're a good football team. But it is proving my point that they play this style of football that is dangerous because the game is always close on the scoreboard.
Yeah, because of backdoor touchdowns and because the first half we were, I guess, close. Like, you can't expect us to win by 20 every first half. They've done it. They've not done it. And then they fix it at halftime. Shout out the head coach who, before we were ending that quick 20-minute pod, I was talking about how I'm fully in on Nick Sirianni because he knows what this football team is and he plays to their strengths, which is a lot of them.
I'm not saying the Eagles are doing anything wrong.
Right.
And they're winning football games.
You have to say this. Yes.
And they're doing the same thing every single week. So it's consistent. They have a style of play and it's working. I'm just saying that style of play leads to the scoreboard constantly being a close game. And that could be dangerous and could come back to bite you. That's all I'm saying.
It's not a close game. It's a close score. There's a difference.
And the score is how you win. If my team throws 5 touchdowns and yours throws 5 picks, but your team has more points, like, Who cares which quarterback threw 5 touchdowns and which threw 5 picks? The person with the most points on the scoreboard wins the game. That is ultimately the only stat that matters. And I can't find any other stat to explain why, but the Eagles are winning close games.
They're not close games, dude.
On the
Watch
scoreboard,
games.
they are.
Okay, they're close scores. It's just,
That's what matters.
The only reason I'm okay with you going down this tangent of this is because if they do lose another game, especially in the playoffs or Super Bowl, and it would probably be because there were mistakes in the first half and the hole was a little bit bigger. In the Super Bowl that I went to, Jalen Hurts had a fumble. That gave him a quick scoop and score, but they were still up 10 at halftime. But it was that mistake that made that hole a little bit smaller that the Chiefs were in. Great quarterback got him out of it. So did a flag at the end of the game. Anyways, there's just a lot to love about this football team, man. And I know a lot of people hate the way they played, the way they're able to run down the clock, the tush push, all of it. I see just a really, really strategic football team that has this all planned out and is not scared whatsoever of any type of situation they're in or any type of football game they got to play. They can win any type of football game. They can win a shootout. They could win a slugfest. They could win a raining game. They could win a turf game. It's all across the board with this team. And now I'm at the point where if they do lose, it's really, really upsetting and it's a loss. It's soupy or bust. It's soupy or bust. It's soupy or bust to the point that if the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl this year, Mike, I felt bad that you've had to run miles and you were doing this thing that if the Cowboys lose, I'm going to run as many miles as they lost by. I didn't really do anything, mostly because I knew the Eagles wouldn't lose again.
Fuck.
If the Eagles lose, Mike, it can't be week 18 when the backups are in. It can be this week. It could be next week against the Cowboys. Both of those games are something to play for, and then the playoffs. If they lose again, I'll run a marathon.
Can you say it a little louder for the people in the back?
I will run 26.2 miles. I will sign up for an actual one to hold me accountable to doing it. I'll pay the price. It'll be at altitude in Colorado. I'll run a marathon if the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl this year.
That's like almost as many miles as I've done in 1 week.
I have to put something behind it. I will give myself
I'm kidding. It's super impressive.
It's in one sitting. It's one shot.
All in one shot is not something I've done. It's something I've debated, but I haven't. I mean, I think you're gonna regret saying that. Like
the Eagles will win Super Bowl.
So we never got to me answering your question, which is how do I cope with the fact that the Eagles are good and the Cowboys are bad? This is how I cope. I am all in on watching the Eagles not win the Super Bowl, and then you have to run a fucking marathon because you should have agreed to do something 10 weeks back when I made my running challenge.
Yeah.
You should have just joined. You should have done the same challenge that I did. Because you know how many miles you would have ran since then? Zero. And you know how many miles you're going to run when the Eagles don't win the Super Bowl?
A lot more than zero.
You're going to run a marathon.
This team is so good, dude. This team is, I mean, we
you
lead
let
everything.
Yourself get too high on
with
them.
number. No, I don't, dude. This is the best Eagles team I've ever watched. They are so good. I called into a Philly sports radio 2 weeks ago after they blitzed the Rams, who also, by the way, had a backdoor touchdown that game to make the score closer. I called in and I told him, I was like, this is the best Eagles team I ever watched. I even led that call with the special teams that night. Like the special teams was awesome against the Rams. This game, what really stood out to me was number one. He, I think, had the best game of his season. He had 19 receptions to his top two guys, which is what they were asking for this week. Saquon didn't play as much this game, and they showed that they still can win pass-dominant games. Every receiver looked open the entire game. I mean, that Steelers defense was supposed to be really special, and they blitzed him, dude. Blitzed him. So, yeah, that's my challenge. That's my confidence with the Eagles team. I have to put something behind it. Yeah, man. I'm now a little bit scared now I said it. Can we talk about another NFC team that we learned a lot about?
Yeah, let's move on.
Well, we led 2 weeks ago the pod, and we titled it The Emotional Lions because it felt like they were really winning games, because of like this emotion that Dan Campbell instills, really kind of like a college program, and how those coaches hype up their players, right? But now, after McNeil is out for the season, it looks like David Montgomery is going to be out for the season. It looks like Carlton Davis is going to be out for the season. 3 of their most physical guys. Mike, are the reason the Lions have more injuries now than anyone in the NFL because of the way Dan Campbell makes them play football?
I'm going to say yes. And I have an interesting take on Dan Campbell. We'll get to it. But I think it all leads into this, which is I'm going to compare Dan Campbell and how he pushes his players. It's going to sound weird, to Tom Thibodeau with his players in the NBA.
I know, this is good. I like this.
By the time the Knicks got to the series with the Pacers last year, they were down like 6 out of their top 10 guys, and 2 other guys were playing through injury because he plays his guys for 40 plus minutes a game, doesn't give them a break, and they do this back and forth, high intensity play that leads to injuries and overworking players and not enough rest. And I'm not saying that football is different. Like, no quarterback is just going to take a drive off because they've been on the field too much. That's not how the game works. But I think there is some factor in there of like the bad boys, and they're fired up and they go crazy after every play and they're so emotional. Like, maybe they're going too hard in games where they don't need to be. Now, like, they played the Bills and David Montgomery got injured in what was an absolute shootout where they had to go hard. And you have to go hard every game because the NFL is a competitive league and we've seen the worst teams beat the best. But yeah, I can't pinpoint what it is, but I do kind of have to throw Dan Campbell in the mix for at least some of the blame for what has happened.
I think that's fair, man. I really do. It's because, like, what is Dan Campbell? Like, what is he really bringing to the football team? Well, it's what we just said, right? And if that's really your job, because Ben Johnson's doing the offense. I don't know who their defense coordinator is, but Dan Campbell's not a defensive guy.
No, Aaron Glenn is their defensive coordinator. Sorry.
And he takes a CEO type of approach, kind of similar to like what you've seen with Belichick in years past, and obviously like Nick Sirianni now with the Eagles. 2 very different coaches, though, because Nick Sirianni isn't getting up after the postgame and giving this big emotional like we got ourselves, like we got to just keep rolling, and you see it in these pregame like pep talks that Montgomery leads or Sewell, and it's just like holy shit, these guys are fucking fired up, but now they're really injured, right? And now you can't really mask your talent with this type of emotions, especially in week 16 of the NFL year. Now, the 1 seed is incredibly important to this Lions team, way more than it is to this Eagles team. I really think that's their only path at winning the NFC now, is like you get that game in Detroit, you score points fast, you put the Eagles in a hole, and you hold on to that lead.
I completely agree. And I think it goes both ways. Right now, we're focusing on possibly blaming Dan Campbell for players getting injured and them losing this past weekend. But I think you also have to give Dan Campbell credit because he built up a terrible Lions organization into the juggernaut that they are now because of this, because of the play style, because of who they are. And now Dan Campbell, I'm sure, in one of his press conferences this week, will dive super hard into this next man up mentality and how it's a team and they're always ready and they're not fazed by injuries. And I think playing in Detroit for them is going to mean even more to them because, like you said, the talent will not match up against the Eagles. The talent did not match up against the Bills. The talent may not match up against the Chiefs. You could argue the talent doesn't match up against some of the other NFC
Vikings,
teams.
Packers, maybe. Yeah.
Right. In Detroit, with that crowd, with that coach, with those players fired up, that's the only way that they are going to be able to make the Super Bowl and win football games the rest of the season. Is that enough with all of the injuries that they've gone through? Maybe. But if they drop one of these last 3, which they're going to be favored in all three, and they should take care of business in all three. So more than likely, they're going to be the 1 seed. But if they drop one of these three, like, as much as it pains me to say, like, hammering the Eagles to win the NFC feels very safe.
It does. I hate that you said that, but I hate that people have really come around to that. But the Lions kind of almost leave them no choice. Like, McNeil was the replacement for Hutchinson. He was having an incredible year. Carlton Davis was their best free agent pickup. David Montgomery, enough said, right? So you're just like, you're losing these key identities. And I think the formula is really clear. There's got to be some magic, right? And Dan Campbell has shown that he can make that happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that it's just so night and day.
Mm-hmm.
He can win them games, and he can absolutely lose them games.
Yeah,
and,
let's talk about the onside kick. I mean,
right, that's where I was going to go. I'm not sure that the onside kick lost them the game.
No.
I have a feeling that they were going to lose either way.
Yeah.
But down 10, after just scoring, with 12 minutes left to go in the football game, all 3 timeouts, and they did not kick the ball off. They kicked an onside kick, which then Mac Hollins actually ended up returning to the 5-yard line, which was really the nail in the coffin. I think if you give Josh Allen the ball on the opposing team's 40 up 10 with 12 minutes to go, the football game is still over. And to take it even farther, the football game might have already been over, because giving Josh Allen the ball up 10 on his own 25, he's still probably going down the field and scoring. And that's what Dan Campbell's thinking. But I think this sends a bad message to his defense that he doesn't trust them to make a stop when it matters. Nonetheless, they were going to need 2 stops.
Right.
So he doesn't trust them to do that. And he would rather kick an onside kick where, as you mentioned in the part that got deleted, you can't do a surprise onside kick anymore.
No.
You have to let the refs and the other team know they get to line up, they get to prepare. It's like a 6% hit rate this year on onside kicks,
which is like 1 in 12 at the least. And you're telling me that defense can't stop them 1 out of 12 times?
Bad message to send to your team. And I'm not sure that those players are even picking up that message because of how positive he is for his players.
Yeah.
And it's not the message he was trying to send. But in that moment, with the game on the line, he decided to kick an onside kick. He also went for it on 4th and inches from the 20-yard line a few weeks ago, where he could have just kicked a field goal, and it worked. Yeah. So there's both sides to this thing. Like, and this is what I've said all season about Dan Campbell. He's going to win some games laying his nuts on the line. And I'm afraid he's going to lose games because he's going to lay his nuts on the line too much. And I don't think that this nut call led him to losing the game, but it certainly didn't give them a chance at winning. And it's certainly something to keep in mind as we move forward into the playoffs.
There's big coaching stories for sure. I mean, Sirianni's one of them, right? Because if they lose, it's probably on him and the way they got themselves a hole. But yeah, man, it was a crazy turn, just media and like sentiment wise with this Lions team. And I think it's well deserved. I've never been as high on them as most this year. Like, I know what we've been seeing, but it was cool getting to put the Eagles and Lions side by side on Sunday. Cause I think the 2 big differences I saw was, 1, defenses, just very clearly. I think the Eagles have the best in the league and the Lions aren't anywhere close now. And then 2, and Jared Goff had like 5 touchdowns, so I can't really say this, but I have watched the Eagles team and this defense just kill pocket passers. And I think a Jared Goff in Philadelphia in an NFC Championship game is just going to get murdered. That's just what I think, man.
Completely agree. I think if the Eagles get the 1 seed, the NFC is wrapped up aside from some kind of anomaly. And I think, like, you see this more with the Chiefs in the AFC, but the 1 seed, now that they're the only one that gets a bye, is incredibly valuable. I'd argue it's the greatest advantage in all of sports to be the 1 seed in the NFL, because you get a bye week and then you play the worst team that won the previous week at home. then you play another team at home and you're in the Super Bowl. Like, if you can't win 2 games at home as supposedly one of the 2 best teams in football, then you don't deserve it. And a lot of times the 1 seed does make it to the Super Bowl.
I
And
like
that's
that point.
it's an incredible advantage.
It's definitely the best in sports, 100%. Now, especially now that it's just one team. I mean, and it also makes the regular season mean more than anything now. Obviously, you can still win the division, so it means Cowboys are still in it, right? Like there's only been like 5 teams that have actually been eliminated. The NFL regular season is bigger than any other sport now, including college football, because of the playoff, right? Like when PCS was the thing, obviously that outweighed anything. And honestly, that brings me to a good point, because last night was the NBA Cup, and the ratings are down like 50%. 3-pointers are being shot more than anything. LeBron is missing. He's probably going to retire soon. I'm so out on the NBA, man. I have no interest in watching this sport. Not even first round of the playoffs, dude. I mean, this is not a Sixers thing, because the Sixers have their problems, obviously. But, dude, this product is awful. It is a terrible sport to watch. I watched the Gator game last night against UNC, and I was like, this is fun. This is competitive basketball. There's a game plan behind it. They're trying their best. We're only 10 games into the season, non-conference opponents. Then I flip on to ESPN to watch the NBA Cup, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander bricks a 3, and then Giannis lobs it down to Dame Lillard on the other side of the court, and he shoots the 3. It's just boring. I hate it. I hate it, Mike. I'm out on the NBA.
I completely agree. And I think I find myself in this scenario pretty much every season. And it's unfortunate that now that the Knicks are really good, I'm more out on the NBA than I probably ever have been. I think it's unfair to say that you won't be back in for the first round of the playoffs, because I will admit, as I do every year, that the NBA playoffs rock. And it is awesome to get to see teams play each other in back-to-back games, because you really start to figure out what are the good matchups, which players are going to excel. Like, everyone's going all out. You're seeing smaller benches. The best players are on the court more often. I love the NBA playoffs, but I hate the NBA regular season. And I just, like,
it's awful.
I watch regular season football. Obviously, you only get 17 games. Every game matters. That's different. I'll watch a hockey game, although I don't get super into the NHL during the regular season, I will admit. But, like, I'll sit down and watch the majority of Yankees baseball games because they're competitive and everyone's trying. Like, the NBA, it just looks like nobody cares. And truly, I think you see a lot of teams step it up after the All-Star break, because they're like, whoa, we're like almost out of playoff contention.
Right.
But the first half of the season, if you're a good team, you don't have to worry about shit, because 10 out of 15 teams make the playoffs in every conference. That, to me, is absurd. I think 8 is still crazy, because 8 out of 15, more than half the teams in the league make the playoffs. Like, it's supposed to be difficult to make the playoffs.
It's 10 now. They have the play-in. It's like
2/3 of the NBA makes the playoffs.
No shit, they're not going to try. No, I mean, and they see just how much it actually means come that point of the season. And you start the season while baseball's still on, while football is in the heart of the season. It's like, why do you do it? Cut the season in half, man. Make these games exciting. We had a whole segment a few weeks ago. Shout out Levi and his question. It's like, how do you fix it? It's like, dude, make it so that, like, the stars who obviously think they're stars in the way they're divas and sit out these games play 40 games. In those 40 games, you get to televise, you get to make it the best games in the league, you get to advertise them, and they'll play. And then the other 40 games are like your B team, your summer league, your G league, right? And it's like, maybe you still have some starters in there, but like not like 5 key guys. And you can like weigh that win and loss a little bit less than like those 40 main games. That's my big fix. But dude, just cut down the fucking season. Nobody's watching. It's no way it makes you money, because it's just going to cut down on viewership. It's not like people are going to all these games. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know how you fix it. I think Adam Silver's a dunce. I think he just lets these players tell him what to do. I don't think he has any direction with this league.
Agreed. And it's very similar, though, to like politics, where to get reelected, you need to be in with the right people. And so you do favors for them.
Right.
And Adam Silver is a man of the players. And He allows them to express themselves with their shoes. He allows them to express themselves by speaking very openly about controversial things in their press conferences. Some things
Greg
that a lot of
Popovich.
other leagues don't let their players do.
Yep.
So I give Adam Silver a lot of credit with things that he's done, but the regular season is so terrible. And I think the only way to fix it is cutting down the schedule and figuring out how many games can we play. Let's maximize the amount of games we play so that we still make the most money. Cool. But at what amount of games does every single game matter?
Yeah.
Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it 40? Like, then when you get to 45, do games start not mattering? Like,
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is, and I don't think the NBA knows, and I don't think they're ever going to cut the season down because ultimately it's less money for them. It's less money for the TV channels and everything.
Guess I don't know if that math really is adding up in my head. I don't understand how you staying set on, like, they don't even want to move it to like 78 games. Like, they are just so set, like, we are never going to lose that. So I don't know, maybe I'm missing something on the financial side. I like your politics point, because it's like, yeah, we're going to get money, which in politics, like, you're kind of looking for donors and obviously like celebrities to like endorse you, right? But if you get the wrong guys and that don't resonate with the general public, you're going to lose, which is happening with the NBA. Like, they're adhering to player standards, they're adhering to the checkbooks with the TV deals, but you're killing your fans, man. Like, you know what Adam Silver's excuse was to this? It was, we have more social media followers than any other sports team in America. It's like, congrats, dude. China loves you.
Yeah.
China fucking loves you. Go play in China then. Like, this is an American sports league. This is how American sports are set up, and you're losing Americans watching your sport.
Yeah, he's doing everything extremely well except putting together a better product on the court.
Yep.
Off the court, he's killing it. But the fact that nobody is acknowledging that the product of basketball is terrible and that all players do is get fouled and not try, like, I mean, we could dive into Joel Embiid and how ridiculous it is that how much money he's getting paid to not play.
That extension was really weird. Just looking back at it, man.
Yeah. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole, but we can if you want.
Just real quick on it. Like, it was kind of crazy that they just gave him a 3-year extension, and he took it. Like, why did he take that deal?
Well, I don't know why he took it, to be fair. I honestly don't, because he spent so many years there and can't win playoff games. Right. Why would he not want to go somewhere else and just go to a loaded up roster? So, like, I don't know, maybe he just like really likes Philly. What I think is interesting, and like when you talk to somebody who doesn't know sports as well, they ask you who makes the most money out of any sport. The answer at the high end is baseball, but overall is the NBA.
Yeah.
The only reason that is true is because the NBA's roster is 12 people. The MLB roster is 26 people. The NFL roster is 53 people. So for leagues that are vary but have similar revenue incomes, and the teams are spending somewhat similar amounts on their players, you can split up X amount of dollars by 12 people in the NBA, and you have to split up that same amount of money by 53 in the NFL. And the NFL is a better league with more fans and better attendance and better TV ratings, but their players get paid less because there's more of them. And the NBA, there's less players, so there's more money for everybody, and you get guys like fucking Emmanuel Quickly that are making $20 million a year.
Yeah.
It's broken.
It's broken, man. And like, it's just really like the ESPN positioning and how they're just taking all the sports and getting all the best commentators, and like just TV in general, I think is just shaping these leagues, and not for the better in most cases.
No, but what has gotten better and what I'm all in on is college basketball, because college basketball rocks. And what rocks about it more this year is that there are 3 undefeated teams left in college basketball, and one of them is the motherfucking Florida Gators.
Fuck yeah, man. Let's go. Basketball school.
We rock.
We rock. We're really good. Todd Golden
Like-
is the boy.
Yeah, hopefully he said all this stuff about the doing bad things to girls. He said it was all fake. We haven't heard much about it since it came out. So hopefully it was all fake. Because aside from all the social things, the guy knows how to coach a college basketball team.
Inside scoop to this whole Todd Golden situation, the report came from the Alligator, which was the newspaper that got our fraternity suspended in sophomore year of college. So you've heard it from the source itself. The report's bullshit. Fuck, that's going to get me in trouble maybe.
Yeah, I really hope it's not true, because then you're in trouble.
Fuck the Alligator, man. Those guys
You know what
suck.
is true, though, is if we take care of business on Saturday at home against North Florida, I'll knock on wood for that, we're going to be a top 5 college basketball team.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we look like a top 5 college
Most
basketball
definitely, man. I like this team could get, if they keep it rolling, a 1 seed. They could be like a 1, 2, or 3 seed in the tournament, which is
team. 100%. And it's going to be interesting because obviously they're not going to go undefeated the whole season. The SEC is by far the best college basketball conference this year.
Loaded.
Joe
dude.
Lunardi in his like way too early bracketology, he does those like starting in the beginning of the season, which like I think is a little excessive because you really don't know who's good or not.
Yeah.
But whatever. His most recent bracketology, he had 13 SEC teams.
Oh my God. Let's list them out. I mean, it's Florida, Bama, Auburn, Kentucky, Ole Miss is 17th, Oklahoma's 14th, Tennessee's number 1 in the country, Texas A&M, that's 8, and they're all ranked. And then from there, it's like South Carolina's got a good team. Mizzou and Mississippi State are both 10-1. LSU is always good at 9-2. I mean, there's not an SEC team that has. There's one that has more than 2 losses. It's South Carolina, who I actually think's a good team. It's so. I mean, it's just going to be awesome when they start getting into conference play. The SEC tournament's going to be awesome this year. We should maybe even go to that. That would be really cool. That'd be
like that.
That'd be really cool if we went to that. But yeah, man, college basketball is great. I think this is an earlier start for us getting into college basketball this year for 2 main reasons. 1, the Gators are fucking gas, and 2, the NBA sucks.
Yeah, I think for me, it was also, I had like a weird, like, I have off of work on weird days, and it was like a random Tuesday and Wednesday, which was the time of like the Maui Invitational and the Battle for Atlantis and all that shit, which those games were incredible. We talked about it a few weeks ago. We don't have to go into it, but I was like, whoa, like college basketball is awesome. I'm all in on it, and I'm still all in on it. Unfortunately, the arena that I work at hosts Georgetown, who fucking sucks.
They do,
but they do host some cool teams. So
totally. Good for you, man.
I'm
That's
in
cool.
on college basketball.
And every time I get to March, I'm like, damn, I wish I had just paid more attention so I can be like even more dialed in.
This is the year I am going to be dialed in.
Well,
and it'll probably be the year I make my worst bracket ever because I'm going to think I know what's going to happen.
Right. Well, I also blocked off that first weekend of work to go to Vegas for the first weekend of March Madness. I've told you a few times. You should definitely try and make that happen.
Yeah,
it would be really sick.
If you're in, I'm pretty much in. Like, I'll send the email tomorrow requesting time off. Like, there's so many cool things we could do. We could go to the SEC tournament.
Oh, dude.
Like, we should still look into the Maui Invitational next year. Obviously, the Super Bowl is a dream. Like, there are so many sports things. But
I forgot to mention what happens to you if the Eagles do win the Super Bowl, Mike.
What happens?
You have to be in on this as well. I run a marathon if they don't win the Super Bowl. If they do win the Super Bowl, I'm making you take a train up to Philly and come to the parade with me.
That hurts. Like, I'm trying to think of like, would I rather run a marathon than go to the Eagles?
And I can make you wear a Cowboys jersey during it. I mean,
that's like literally like, I'm gonna need security.
You're gonna,
I think I'd get my ass beat.
No, I don't think so. You're irrelevant at that Like you would just get
I think
shit all day.
I think drunk Philly fans are still going to beat my ass.
Well, I'd be there to protect you.
We'll probably be pretty famous by then, so everyone will know me.
Well, if you were to like wear a Cowboys jersey or a hat or something, like I'd give you a mic by your side just to see like how much people come up to you. That'd be crazy. You'd be the only one in the city wearing a Cowboys jersey that day. It's kind of baller, honestly.
Would you allow me the opt-out option for me to run my own marathon?
No. You've ran enough. You're doing this with me.
So if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I'm going to the parade with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you're going to get to the parade like 3 days after the Super Bowl, but you'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out.
And if they don't win the Super Bowl, I'm not doing shit and you're running a marathon. I'll cheer you on at your marathon.
Okay. So, maybe I'll buy the flights now just to make sure. That would suck. Mike,
I'm in. Let's go.
Who's winning the college football playoffs?
So I made my bracket actually earlier today.
I should do that.
And it's certainly not finalized. And I think I'm going to switch this up before Saturday. But as of now, my college football champion is the Georgia Bulldogs.
Is Carson Beck active?
No idea. That's what scares me.
I mean, they looked better without him. That's kind of people's thing. FSC fans hate it. I can't do Georgia. I don't think I can even do Texas, honestly. I don't
want to. It's just like, listen, I'm really excited for the first round of games.
Me too.
And let's say, if all the favorites win in the first round, Ohio State, Tennessee is kind of a chalk up. But if Penn State, Georgia, and Texas win if Penn State, Notre Dame, and Texas win in the first round,
and Ohio State,
the second round games are also incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're talking about the Final Four, which is like ultimately what the playoff was the last few years, it's not going to change much from the top four teams. The only slight difference is Penn State is probably going to make it to the Final Four. They're going to beat Boise State. And Texas is technically ranked 5, but it's only because Arizona State won their conference. I mean, it's going to be 1, 2, 5, and 6, and 3 and 4 are not the number 3 and 4 teams. They just won their conference. So the top 4 teams in the country, based on the final rankings, I truly believe will make it to the Final Four.
And so then would it be, what would the second round matchups be? Would it be Ohio State, Notre Dame?
The second round, you would get Texas, Arizona State, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Boise State, and Notre Dame, Georgia. A sneaky spot for Notre Dame, I think.
Sneaky, extremely.
If I wanted to take an upset, assuming Penn State's going to be favored over Boise State,
definitely.
The only one I'm taking there is Notre Dame.
I think Penn State's like minus 200 or something to make the Final Four just because it's SMU and Boise. Penn State, not because of that reason, it does help, is actually my pick to win it all this year. I have and I am always on the side of I hate James Franklin. He never wins the big games, but I'm also a vibes guy. And I'm getting just different vibes from State Valley this year. State College, Happy Valley. It's Drew Aller threw a really bad pick six at the end of the half to essentially lose them the Big Ten championship game. And I'm very well aware of that. I think he might be the best quarterback in these playoffs besides Taylor Gabriel. I think it gives me Ben Roethlisberger vibes. Like he's able to just kind of like stay strong in the pocket and use a big arm to get the ball to where it needs to go. He had that great backdoor touchdown to make the game close at the end of the Oregon game. That defense is just as good as anyone in the country. I think this has been their best year. Like I've seen them. They have one loss to Ohio State and Oregon, but they were right there in both those games. The Ohio State game, they did not play well, but I think they learned from that. And I got them at 13-1. I like this Penn State team, man.
I don't hate them to possibly knock off Georgia in the semifinal and make it to the national championship. my problem with Penn State is the problem that everyone has with Penn State every single year, is that they don't win the big game. And yes, they were there against Oregon, and they weren't really there against Ohio State, but like those were their two big games, and they lost both of them. So whatever the vibes are,
Damn.
cool. On paper, they had two big games this year, and they didn't win them, and they've had probably 10 big games the last 5 or 6 years, and I don't think they won any of those. And so I like them to make the semifinal. I don't hate them to make the national championship. I just don't think they win big games, and I don't see why I can convince myself that that will happen otherwise. Do I want them to? Would I love to root for them? Do I want to root for Georgia or Texas or even Oregon? No. But Penn State doesn't win big games, and I can't put my money on that changing.
Eventually, it has to happen, right? Eventually. Maybe it's without James Franklin as a coach. We'll see. I can't wait, man. Saturday's crazy. I'm not leaving the couch Saturday.
I was going to say this weekend is epic.
Epic. Do you want to run through what Saturday has in store?
Yeah, because first Friday, not as cool, but super cool for us. The Florida Gators play their bowl game in Tampa against Tulane. There's going to be a ton of Gator fans. It'll basically be a home game. A ton of our friends are going.
Nice.
I think we're a much better team than Tulane, and it'd be really nice to put a nice stamp on this season with a dominant bowl game victory, which I hope we're going to see. And then we move into Saturday, where the slate is absolutely unreal. Starting off with the noon college football game, you get SMU at Penn State. Hopefully SMU keeps that close. You know they have a good offense. The question is the defense. Then you get the Houston Texans at the Chiefs. That game becomes a lot less cool.
You're missing the FCS semifinals of South Dakota State at North Dakota State. I love that game. I want to watch that game.
I will have that. Like, I'll be at a bar drinking all day Saturday. It is like the first Saturday that I've had off work in like 2 months.
Fire.
And
good for you.
I
Great
already
Saturday.
have plans to get absolutely obliterated all day. We're going to this place called Franklin Hall. It's like a pool hall with tables, and it's a sports bar, and we're going to get pitchers of beer, and we're going to sit at the same table for 12 hours and watch college football and NFL, and it's going to rock. And I don't hate the FCS playoffs being a part of that.
Well, it's in the Fargo Dome. They're both 12-2, and South Dakota State's favored by 3. Fargo Dome is North Dakota State, by the way.
I'm aware. And so I like North Dakota State there.
Me too,
as the
they're
dogs
like
at
the
home.
perennial like program out of those two. I know South Dakota State's pretty good, the Jackrabbits, but yeah, give me North Dakota State, the dogs in that game.
Our co-lock of the week is North Dakota State on the money line. If you aren't degenerates like us and you're focusing on the more commercial games of Saturday, you get your SMU at Penn State to kick things off at noon. You also can't forget about, if you're not a Florida Gator fan, you're getting Indiana Notre Dame on Friday night. That could end up being the best game of all 4 of these first round matchups.
Yep.
But after SMU Penn State, you're getting Texans at Chiefs in the NFL at 1 o'clock. Hopefully Mahomes plays, but also hopefully he doesn't, because can Carson Wentz win a football game? I don't know.
Carson Wentz play football again. Give it to me.
With the Chiefs,
wouldn't it be crazy if Patrick Mahomes is like out, never wish an injury on anyone, but then Carson Wentz leads the Chiefs to a Super Bowl like Nick Foles did with the Eagles?
Carson Wentz does a Nick Foles after Nick Foles did it to Carson Wentz?
The story
not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Nope. No. He fumbles too much.
You get those games to start off your day. Now you've had lunch. You've had a few drinks. You're feeling good. Get to 4 o'clock. Like, all right, need to keep going. Bang. Clemson at Texas. Hopefully Clemson comes with their offense that day, because when they don't, they're a really ugly football team to watch. when they do show up and Kid Klubnik is on his A game, they're a somewhat interesting team to watch. That should be a good game. Followed up right afterwards at 4:30 by the Steelers at the Ravens. Epic. Like we said last week, Steelers aren't that good. Bad matchup at the Eagles. Divisional matchup. Ravens can't really blow anybody out. Can't
It's
close
also
games
like
out.
for the division, really. I mean, the Ravens are 9-5, Steelers are 10-4.
It's going to be awesome. I looked into going actually. Nosebleeds were like 300.
Yeah,
And as a person who's not a fan of either team, I'm going to pass on that. And I'm going to watch all of football that day. And after those two juggernaut slates going at each other, you get to finish off with Tennessee, Ohio State, which is probably the biggest chalk up of this round.
I'd say so. And I think we both hate both teams. I'm not convinced on this Tennessee team whatsoever. And Ohio State is enough said. I also saw that Ohio State fans also realize that, and they're not buying tickets like they expected. And now today, Tennessee fans went on Apple Maps and changed the name of the shoe to Nayland North. It's kind of
wow,
pretty baller.
And that is the complete opposite of what's happening with the Notre Dame Indiana game, where Notre Dame fans are scared and they are upping the prices to price out the Indiana fans because they're both Notre Dame's in Indiana. They're both like a few hours apart from each other.
Yep.
And Indiana, when was the last time their football team has been like this? They were going to ride out deep. We'll see how deep they make it because Notre Dame is price gouging these Indiana fans. And if I was an Indiana college kid right now, or even at our age, and I went to Indiana, I'd be really pissed that I'd have to drop over $1,000.
Oh my God.
For nosebleeds.
Holy shit. That's crazy.
For the first round matchup. That is absurd.
They haven't played in like 20 years, I'm pretty sure. I sell to a guy that's like a fan of both of them. So it's like, I was like, who are you? And I was really excited after this game was announced. I was like, dude, who are you rooting for? He's like, I have to root for Indiana. Like, I just have to. Like, because he's an alma mater there. Notre Dame is like kind of the one he's like rooted for his whole life, you know? But yeah, dude, in-state rivalry. It's really cool. I've been to Indiana a few different times. All my cousins went to Purdue, the third school out of this Indiana kind of circle, I guess. But Bloomington's great, man. It's an awesome town. I remember me and my cousin got really drunk there one night and we just stumbled into a fraternity and got lit with them. They care about that school, but they don't get talked about a lot. It's a great school. And Notre Dame, and they couldn't be more different. Like Notre Dame's the prestigious. My dad went here. I'm Catholic and I wear preppy clothes. And Indiana's like, we're getting drunk. We're in Bloomington, you know? So I've grown up a Notre Dame fan my entire life. There's a part of me that just kind of likes this Indiana story and wants to see them do well.
The Indiana story is awesome. I am afraid that it's going to come to an end on Friday night, but
I think they're good, man. I think they're good. I actually think both of these teams are very similar in the way they just command the clock. They run the ball. They got two good enough quarterbacks, right? Coaches are very sturdy. It's going to be a cool game, man. I can't wait. But, Mike, the time has come. 13-2, 11-4. It's time to hit the NFL slate for week 16. There are 3 weeks left. You did start off this pod by saying I'm not allowed to take the Eagles, and I would like to say I am allowed to take the Eagles minus 3.5. I am still yet to be fully decided.
I just want to, as you're deciding, and I can go first because I have decided I don't love where I'm at, but I can't keep overthinking this, so I've just settled on a team. I think we need to broaden the picture here because as a team, we are absolutely incredible. 13-2, 11-4, 24-6 on the season. Locks of the week.
Rank dog. 24-6.
Fucking incredible.
75% on the two of us. Unreal.
But if you want to get competitive, you have 2 more wins than me. I have 2 more losses than you. There's 3 weeks left in the season. You can clinch at least a tie with a win this week.
And neither of us have had a push yet either, which could influence a lot of this coming down. Because of what you just said, it's only fair that you go first so I don't take your lock of the week.
I
Here we go, man.
am taking, with all the money on the line, give me the Miami Dolphins at home, 4:30 on Sunday, hosting the San Francisco 49ers. It is -1, so I can push if they win by 1 point. The Miami Dolphins are 6-8. The San Francisco 49ers are 6-8, which means they don't have a winning record. The Dolphins suck against teams above 500. They beat teams below 500. They're going to do it on Sunday. The 49ers with a loss become eliminated from the playoffs.
Wow.
And the Dolphins with a win keep my hopes of beating you in the lock of the week season alive.
Tua was
Come on,
really
Mike McDaniel.
bad. Tua was
Win
really
me a
bad.
football game.
I love it, Mike. I actually love this spot. I would be taking the same team here. It makes maybe not as much sense to the blind eye. This Niners team is in a complete downfall. It's a Mike McDaniel revenge game, who, by the way, is very much on the hot seat. Tua is also very much on the hot seat. These teams, like, if neither of them really have anything to play for anymore, I don't think either of them are making the playoffs, and they know that. However, the Dolphins definitely have something more to play for. They're at home in the spot, and I think you're in trouble given you're betting on Tua. But I like the spot you're in. It's a good pick.
I really struggled. And listen, I might look like an idiot, but I'm picking a team that's starting to play better against a team that's starting to play worse. I'm picking the team at home versus the team that's got to travel completely across the country. I'm picking the team with the better offense, and some could argue the better defense.
My last two losses in lock of the week was the Colts when they played the Steelers in week 3, and it was the Eagles when they played the Buccaneers in week 4. I haven't lost in 11 weeks. That's pretty, and my bank account doesn't reflect that because obviously these aren't the only games I'm betting on this week, but I put the most money on these games. And I'm just really proud of us, man, because I really feel like we get to look at this whole slate and we're like, oh, that game, like that's clearly the most obvious. We put our money there, and a lot of times they've been no sweats. Like, we aren't getting railed and being like, oh, we're so dumb for that. Like, it's really, I didn't think we had this in us, you know?
Me neither.
I've liked betting on the NFC. I think I have done better, and I kind of have a better gauge on them. And I've liked betting on weird lines that I take the other side of. And I also like betting on games that a lot of people aren't going to bet on. I don't want to touch Texans or Chiefs. I don't want to touch Steelers, Ravens, both weird lines. I won't touch the Eagles this week. Division game in Washington, God, 3.5. I think I'm looking at 2 games here, Michael. I considered even Titans Colts, and I'll just say, can I take the Colts because the Titans are that bad? But just don't give me a shitty AFC game where I have to keep the streak relying on. I'm going to dial it down to these 2 games. I want to bet either the Lions at Bears, or I want to bet the Vikings at the Seahawks.
All NFC.
All NFC. The Lions are 7-point favorites.
And the Lions and the Vikings, they dominate teams outside of their division. So obviously not applicable for the Lions, but it is applicable for the Vikings.
Who do you think I'm taking?
I don't think you can pull the trigger on the Vikings here.
It's not the Vikings.
You're going Lions.
It's not the Lions. Actually, those weren't even the 2 like sides I was thinking about for either game.
Come on, you're not taking the Bears. You hated the Bears all season. You're taking the Seahawks.
I'm going to take the Seahawks +3 as my lock of the week.
Wow.
They came off a really, really bad game last week, but I still think they got it in them. I think Kenneth Walker is going to play this game, and I think the Vikings are just due to fall off. And I know that's a really bad way to bet, and it can come back and bite me. I haven't really bet for this team or against them this year. I don't know, man. It's at home, and I kind of look at these 2 teams as even. I know the records are different, but I just think these are very 2 even football teams. I think both have great defenses and are very well-coached defenses, so I'll give the upper hand to the Seahawks there coming at home. I think that both quarterbacks can have a day. And I actually like that the Seahawks lost last week, and I like that the Vikings dominated last week because I think it's going to influence this line and where the public goes with it. And I think a lot of the reason I've had success with Lock of the Week is I take these weird picks that don't really make sense. So I'm going to take the Seahawks +3 against the Vikings this week as my Lock of the Week. And you got the Dolphins essentially in a pick 'em. We're both taking home teams. We're both taking teams that have something to play for.
This is huge.
It's big.
Now, last week, I parlayed both of our locks of the week.
Yeah.
It was free. It was a payday. I was down on the week, and I made a whole chunk of change back. It was epic. If you want to do the same this week, you can parlay the 2 free locks of the week at +272.
Nice.
On the other side of things, if you think one of us going to lose, Jaws, you clinch the championship over me in being the better lock of the week picker with either a win or my loss. With a loss from you and a win from me, things get real interesting. Ultimately, more than the competition, I am rooting for the both of us.
Yeah.
I think that we both made good picks.
Me too.
The Seahawks does scare me, but so does the Dolphins. And really, I mean, we both debated this before the show to make sure we didn't pick the same team. Like, a lot of these picks scare me, which is ultimately how we came to these two.
Yeah, weird slate.
I'm going to root for us. I will be once again hammering the lock of the week parlay.
I'm going to do it with
plus
you, Mike.
272. It's stupid not to. Make some money out there, people.
I love it. I love it. We did it last week. We won money on it. The one game that we kind of were both on the same side of, but also very much noted at the beginning of it, we didn't feel good about it, was the Chargers, and they got smoked by the Bucs.
Although, I do have to bring up, because we haven't hit it yet, I wanted to bring it up earlier, never got the chance.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might have broken our Packers curse, because once again, we hammered the Packers together, and once again, we were on the right side because the Packers covered what was a 3-point spread last week. They won by 17. The game was never close. It was 14-0 in the blink of an eye on prime time in Seattle. That was awesome. It might make you feel a little shittier about your Seahawks pick right now.
I really like it, man. I've convinced myself that this is a line that people aren't seeing. The Vikings have 1 day less rest. They're traveling to Seattle. They've just been on a fucking heater. But they got to lose at some point, man. And like this, the Seahawks team isn't bad. If anything, the Seahawks team has proven that when they have a bad week, they're going to have a good one. I think that's like the entire NFC West, honestly. I love my pick. I'm really confident in it. I like the Seahawks this week. Give me the money line with them too. Give me the Dolphins money line. Give me the Eagles money line because there's no chance we lose another game this season. Here we go, Mike. This is it, man.
Cowboys money line? You want to throw Cowboys money line in?
Cowboys have been playing good, man. They're playing the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football in Dallas. So I think it's either they keep playing good football and they beat a slightly above average team that's very on and off each week, or the Buccaneers win by a lot of points because they've proven they can score a lot of points.
Yeah, the Bucs can score a lot. The two things I'm looking for in this game is, can CeeDee Lamb continue to be CeeDee Lamb? Because I think Cooper Rush, after a bit of a rocky start in his first 2 games coming in, realized that CeeDee Lamb is incredible. I won't put him above Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, but I think it's super fair for me to argue him as the 3rd best receiver in the league. You can take A.J. Brown. There are other guys as well. Not going to go into that argument. The point here is Cooper Rush has figured out that when he feeds the ball to CeeDee Lamb, good things happen.
Yeah.
And he did that last week, and they won. Granted, they played the Panthers, but still, recipe for success. And the Bucs don't have a good defense either. So can Cooper Rush keep up with the Buccaneers? I think the answer is yes. Can the Cowboys, who play an aggressive style of defense, a turnover-based style of defense, get enough turnovers? Get any turnovers? Because they're not going to stop the Bucs from scoring points, and that's not what they're going to try and do. But if they can win the turnover battle, I think the Cowboys can win that game. And on primetime, Baker Mayfield sometimes turns the ball over. So
he does. I would love a
I'm
big
very
game
afraid.
from.
Yeah,
I'd love a big Rico Dowdle game for the sake of my fantasy playoffs. That'd be pretty cool. He's
he's been playing well. I'm not sure if that's where you were gonna go.
No,
He's
I
been
was going to give him
awesome.
some credit. I don't think he's
Yeah.
your workhorse. I think that's one of the bigger mistakes they can make this offseason and say he's the number one guy, but he's electric at times.
Yeah, I am afraid that if we don't draft GT, that we're gonna lock in on Rico Dowdle being our RB1. And I think he would be a fantastic RB2 behind Ashton GT. But you did mention fantasy football. Something astronomical is going down in the fantasy football league that you've been trying to get back into for 2 years. Pookie and I had an awful season. We were by far the worst team in the league. We had the least points for everything. What was crazier was Dusty and Tanner having the most points for and yet not making the playoffs. The top 6 out of 10 teams in our league make the playoffs. Dusty and Tanner came in 7th place, even after putting up the most points in the league.
Go.
And then in the first round of the loser bracket, they faced Pookie and I, and they lost to us.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So they are now in the toilet bowl, where the other 2 teams in the loser bracket, the game was 176 to 170. They went fucking off.
Holy shit.
So Dusty
Who are
and
they
Tanner, they're playing Alex Orr and CJ. And they're projected to lose. And
really?
Odds are, they just dropped 170 points. I feel bad for those 2 because we just won with 110. And meanwhile, now they're in the toilet bowl with 170, a lot on the line. More importantly, Dusty and Tanner with a loss. This might be the first time in any fantasy football history that the team with the most points for ends up losing the whole entire league.
What story, man. What a story. That's so fascinating. Keep me updated on that.
That is going to be cool to watch this week.
Let's go, Alex Orr. Clutch up, baby. You got this.
I'm all in on Orr and CJ. We're gonna set a line. We're gonna take bets. It's gonna be great.
That's awesome. Good for you guys. Not jealous at all. That's so cool.
Not jealous at all.
Oh man. All right, dude. Big lock of the weeks. Eagles Commanders, I think, is the best NFC game this year, NFC East game this year.
Yeah, I think there's a good game tomorrow, actually. Broncos Chargers.
Yeah, totally.
And Broncos can pretty much lock up a playoff spot with a win. That'll give them 10 wins.
Essentially,
Chargers could fall to 8-7, and the Dolphins and other teams are still hanging around there.
The Broncos could fall into the 5 seed and play the shaky Texans team, and that
100%.
and it'd be that weird ESPN Saturday game together. Yeah, dude, this is that'll the time of year we live for. Yeah,
we already hit the Saturday games.
Yeah,
the Sunday's got some weird games.
Yeah, Eagles Commanders. Brian Robinson, the running back, came out and he says, "We just think we're a better football team."
He thinks that the Commanders are a better football team.
Yeah, he's like, we just think we're better.
Was he there the first time they played?
Yeah, he did in fact play in that football game. Yeah.
So he didn't get shot before that game? He was there.
He was there. He did not get shot.
No.
Who's the better football player after getting shot? Brian Robinson or Ricky Pearsall?
Brian Robinson.
They're both seem to be okay. Maybe getting shot is just a good thing for your NFL career now. That's just what people are saying. I don't know.
Plaxico Burress wasn't great for him.
That's a good point. Well, he did shoot himself.
Come back. Yeah. He literally shot himself in the foot.
That's a good throwback, dude. That was a wild moment as an 8-year-old. I'm like, he did what?
Yeah.
He shot himself in the foot? Huh?
Especially he was on the Giants. I was living in Jersey. All my friends are Giants fans.
Huge story at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they thought he was the greatest thing ever.
He was. He was elite.
I'm pretty sure he was the one that had the game-winning touchdown in the first Super Bowl they played against the Patriots, right?
Well, David Tyree had the catch. Who
Right,
had
but the touchdown, I think it was him. I really do think it was him.
It totally could have been.
Yeah. We'll end the show with why not Plaxico Burress, Mike.
Yeah, and that just makes me think of Mario Manningham.
Mario Manningham, man. We got to do
that
one
catch along the sidelines.
Yeah.
In
What a
in the
catch.
second Super Bowl.
Right.
Unbelievable.
You got some cool Victor Cruz. There's some good Giants receivers back in the day. They had one guy who they like drafted in the first round. He was supposed to be the best thing ever, and he had like one good game. I forget his name. Yeah, there's some good. We should do a pod after NFL season where we do random NFL players because we go into our
we come with like a super elite list, like Antoine Randall.
Yeah. And every time one of us has a player we didn't recognize, or was like, oh, we got to take like a sip of beer or some shit. That'd be
Dude,
cool.
I was gonna say like we could turn this into like a drinking thing. Like we could just like grab like a 24 rack each and just like
you know. Oh, I love it, man. All right, but let's end Lock of the Week strong. It's been a great season doing the podcast with you. We'll try and make a reel out of this one.
I think we're gonna have some good ones.
Me too. Why not us?
Why not us?
Peace, y'all.